I'm going to tell you a story about Larry. Larry and Bill were in Bill's ice shack on Lake Winnebago. It was February, and every year for the past 25 years, Bill had an ice shack out on Lake Winnebago. For 25 years, Bill had been trying to spearfish a sturgeon and never had any luck. You know, on Lake Winnebago, it's you can spear a sturgeon fish in February for like a 2-week period if it's over the legal size limit. Bill never had. He always, either was the sturgeon were too far down into the water and he couldn't spear it, or they just went by his ice hole too fast for him to actually do something. So, and now, this year, the water was kind of murky, so Bill wasn't looking good, and he was probably going to get skunked again, to be honest with you. Now, Larry, this was Larry's third time spearfishing with Bill, and the ice hole in that shack was a size of 3 by 5, and the shack itself is like 6 by 8, so the quarters are a little tight to begin with. And if Larry was honest with you, he would have said it was kind of boring. So every once in a while, Larry'd have to go outside the ice shack and stretch, out on that barren ice there on Lake Winnebago. And but Lake Winnebago's huge, and during the spearfishing season, it's like a city out there. Hundreds of ice shacks, and around Bill's ice shack, there was probably within 100 feet 20 shacks. So a lot going on. Now, Bill's in the shack with Larry, and he's listening to a country music station. He's drinking a Pabst beer, and there's a pile of empty beer cans over in the corner where Larry's sleeping. When the water starts moving, it's just a ripple at first, and then it's kind of like a moving wave of water, and it flushes over the ice inside the shack. And that's when a gigantic sturgeon slid by, started into that hole, not 2 feet from Bill. Well, Bill always thought he'd be cool when this happened, but he was anything but that. He yelled and jumped up with his spear, and when he jumped up, his legs pushed the bench, slamming against the ice shack wall. And Larry jumped up into the air 2 feet and landed in the ice hole on top of that sturgeon, right on his back. With a big howl, Larry's in the water. And Bill is sitting there ready to throw the spear, but he's contemplating, do I not? This is the biggest sturgeon I've ever seen in my life. He throws the spear. It could be a possible state record. Down it goes into the monster, and he's elated. But Larry's gone. He's gone. And so the elation turns into worry, big worry. So he immediately takes the rope from the sturgeon spearfish spear, ties that onto the shack door, and goes running outside and yells, "Oh, no, make it that. Check that." Screams, "Larry's under the ice! Larry's under the ice!" And he runs over to the next shack and yells, "Larry's under the ice! Larry's under the ice!" And he runs from every shack And the next 50 feet around him, yelling, bursting into doors, Larry's under the ice. Meanwhile, Larry is distraught. Now, he's been in some tough spots before, but this one's different. The water's murky. He can't see anything, and he's paddling around in circles. And you know, at that time, Larry said later he reflected on what's going on. He says, "Well, I always followed Bill wherever he went, and you know, if he wanted to go duck hunting, I'm in. Pheasants, oh sure. Squirrels, well, squirrels. We had an ugly incident with squirrels with Larry, and we won't dwell on that. But right now, in this situation, this is a matter of survival. And Larry's tough. He's a great swimmer, and he's paddling, but he's running out of breath. And out of nowhere, he starts seeing this light. This light is kind of going back and forth in the murky water, kind of like a flashlight, going like this. So Larry heads towards that. And just before he runs out of breath, he pops up into that ice hole. And Emmett reaches down in and grabs Larry by the collar and pulls him right out of the ice, right into his shack. And Larry's just elated. And he's a little shaken at first. He said later he was a little shaken. But he shook once, and then he shook twice, and he shook 3 times, and he shook all that water off his back. And then Emmett put a blanket on him, kind of rubbed him down a little bit, comforted him. And then he started heading out the door. He says, I'm going to have to tell Bill where Larry is. So he starts heading out the door, but just right before he does that, he turns to Helen, who's sitting over in the corner, and says, Helen, you take care of Larry and stay here. And then he goes out the door. And Larry looks over at Helen, and she's kind of cute. And she's a yellow lab, just like a Larry. And he goes, Emmett, you take your time.